Hello everyone, a very good morning and greetings to all of you to this regular Sunday morning, but today is very special. It is the full moon of the 7th lunar month of the Tibetan Buddhist calendar, during which they complete the summer rainy season retreats. All the monks are coming out of the rainy season retreat. And also it is the biggest festival in the Chinese Buddhist calendar, praying for all the deceased beings. And also today coincides the 465th anniversary of Tsarchen Losap Gyatso, who is a founding master of the one of the sub-tradition within the Sakya lineage, of which the late His Eminence Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche was the head of. So it's a very auspicious day. So this morning, usually we start with 45 minutes meditation and then followed by talk. And it will be like that for you. But I will be doing chanting all that 45 minutes, because I don't get to do these prayers that we learn in monasteries. These are prayers to the Buddha and all the great Indian Mahasiddhas, and then to the founding masters, and particularly Tsarchen Losap Gyatso. So I will be chanting throughout, and you will sit and do your meditation using perhaps the sound of my chanting as a kind of a background, but otherwise you do your own one-pointed calm abiding meditation, of course, by observing the 4S, that is the stillness, That is the sincere wish of the being with everyone as you already are, and with serene and very clear attention, and very simple, and not complicate yourself, in a very peaceful, serene state of meditation. So you got to use your meditation techniques. I wouldn't be using the gong to divide into sections as yet. So I will just start the prayer, the refuge and four immeasurable. We pray together because everybody who can join. Then I'll leave you to it for about 45 minutes, during which I will be doing the chanting and you will do the calm abiding meditation. And that would be followed by the talk. Thank you everybody for making your time available on this very auspicious morning. Nice to see you all, regulars and some new faces. This is our regular. We do this regularly on Sunday, so not often I'm able to do it, but always someone will take this session. So thank you very much for joining. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, and those near power. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, and those near power. May all beings happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. So as I just said, I will be doing chanting in praise to the Buddha's life and all the great Indian Mahasiddhas and Nalanda Panditas, and prayer to the all great lineage masters, as particularly prayer to Sarchen Losar Gyaltsen. So throughout the time that you will be doing silent meditation. So thank you. So that's the new form of meditation for you. But for me, it's very regular. In the monastery, we always do chanting, Hardly anybody sit quiet. I don't know why they don't allow that. So I'm sometimes missing my chanting. So today I'm using it as an excuse to do it. So thank you for giving your whole attention in the meditation. O damje gembala janzalo dedro sanje jumden den den de jenje ba da jamba yan da ba zo be riba da jozo den ba de ora je ba je den je ba je won de ba ga la je wa la na me ba la da me dam sanje jumden de jenje ba de na sonam da ge ju den ba ge ve za wa na ju me za wa zo be je Sunam je dernam je je be je zambo nam je je ba zenam je me do jen ba je ren bra dong ba dong na min dun ma me de be me ba na la ngom bra ga wa je ra ba se je me nam ba do na la zi wa me ba zem jen dam je je dong ba jan je zem ba nam je yap ba be gan za nam je ja wa nyang en len de be zhe be zhong je dun zhe wa nam je de be ye je ba de me ba ba zem je me ja ba zong nam bra da ya nian ba gu jie da ba zhou mi jie wa gu cong ba me ba da ba da ge ma ge wa su da ge ni wa ma ge su me ba da da man jie wa dong a da le nan ba zhou wa bong ba da le rao de nan ba zhou wa gang nan da min de ba jie jie nan dam de ba nan xin de jie ba yong su dong wa da le nan ba zhou wa zi ba le zhou wa chi wo le ga wa yi ji yong su zhou ba de ba da ma jian ba Tatra chunpa tangchu de nyunga chumten ten namji shi la ne ba nyunga la de wa la me ne ba yang da ba ni je da la ne sem chen tam che la si pe sa la shu pa de da ne san chi chumten de namji gu chi we yun de yang da ba na so dan pe chu ne da ma ra ge wa ba de ge wa ba na ge wa ten san pa zin zhe san pa man de yang zo zo ba yang zo da ba yang zo da ba chum den den je song be che le ba yang da bra dong wa ne me ba du che ba me ba nye bra de de dong wa la de ye ba ge wa nam je so zo rang ge ri bra ja wa chum den den je song be che du wa la le bra den ba nge bra je wa zo be jang ju du do bra je min dun ba me jin du ba dan den ba ye ba ju wa che ba wo de ba jen be gen du na le ba ju ba re ba ju ba dang ba ju dum ba ju wa dam ma je wa zo je wa cha je wa zo je wa zo nam je be je je yong yong zo jong wa jen bo jin be ne zo je wa gun do yang jin be ne zo je wa jen bo wo Yama Jawan Bo Jinja Zoda Jujun Jida Na Duzun Jiwa Miya Zenga Ga Dage Ma Lue De Da Nam Lue Da Nga Ye Da We Zha Ye Wa Zang Bo Jiwa Ma Lan Da Da Ge Jawa Tam Je Ye Ngun Zong De Shinga Dun Ye Le Ra De Jawa Gan La Ra De Chang Za Lun Du Je De Nan Dun Ye Zang Je Na Zang Je Se Je Wa Na Shu Ba Da De Tra Ju Je Ye Na Ma Le Ba Tam Je Jawa Da Ge Gang Te da nga ba me se jia zo na yan je yan la jia zo zha gun je jia wa gun je yan de ra je je de ra shi ba tam je da ge de me da dam ba jing wa dam sin ye nam da je ba de zha da ma me zha da du ba dam ba ye jia wa de da la ne zha wa je na za dam ba nam da je zha da je ma bar ma re ra nyam ke ba je ra ba be zha gun je jia wa de da la ne zha ba je zha ba ka na la me jia je wa de da jia wa dam je la ya ma zang ba zha la de be da Yawa gan la jan za che pa je, de za xe dan de mo wang ge ne lu da nga dan di jin hi ji jan di ba da ge ji wa ji je wa de da dam je da ge su. Chu ji jia wa gun da san je ze ran je nang da lo da me lo da, zho wa gun je son na gan la ye de da, gun ji ji zo da ye ran gan na ju jin ji ten da. Chan ju rin bro san je ma jan yin gun ba de da da ge dam je la ko lo la na me ba go wa gun yang en da dun gan ji de da lan zho wa gun la bi jin de. Kawa shinge dunye joba yan dage damo rajo zowa je chanza wa dan chi jen jawa dan chi zo ye rang gu yen zowa yan gewa jung se dage je tam chi doge chan chi chen bo ngo cho chi na chi ba san je dan chan chi sen bo chum de ne nam dan nam da sa chi la ne we chan chi sen bo chen bo tam chi da la gong so so chan chi nyen bo chi je bo san je nang la je 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 觉得真知真报也，早来的人家说着，得当的也浪着大也都算给我不能。心情跟着等着这碰把没把那娃着，觉得人家的姐姐也长着都能接把当。长着真白老把老也得大人些呢把当。 一心着了本顿多一张就三年结结结，一心的那拉巴拉人不心的。拉巴拉耶，长者宁波结结巴，三界南老有自己，觉得真就三八也走来的见叫自己，得大的些浪者大一都算给问我不能，心情关键等节着，澎湃没把当话着。觉得人家的姐姐也长就都能结巴当，长就三百拉巴拉也得大人些那巴当，提前到了本顿多也长就三年结结结，提前的那拉巴拉人不行的拉巴拉也长就年不结结巴，三年能拉就是这。这当将军三把爷，早来的见叫这这，得大的些浪者大爷都算给问我不能，身边跟着等着这，澎湃没把当话这，记得人家的姐姐也将就都能接把当，将就三百拉巴拉也得大人些没把当，提前到老本顿都也将就三年接。提前的那拉巴拉，人不行的拉巴拉耶，等得到真这个月，没事巴来巴的。天天三节的时节，三节是做大觉的，大年大给今年家一里单准备来赚的，绝没准备人的老一鸟把人民就得大家。大给的人就把他们姐姐将按照我的建议的呢，把多的老真的不人家，老大老命老做个我去，像这生这人不接嘛，也把那么解决去，也把年把没把也光能光的没把有，像这生的没这些，像这老小娃当。三界南界要说呢，对界连那帮娃哟，将就三把南界呢，这等都拉公这就，我把也呢刚刚把一三界那来点这就，三界当界的当点这这，按照当界大多动画当，将就三把刚的追求把一点的跟界忙乱这就。天前把着进拉到真的也讲究才能那样去嘛就，天大地吧，这不是就把的，天大马了样说大不来就也大不给多些下一节这所一种。千劫灭道的劫帮全把，世界轮不大问劫别个，下一劫劫我劫来常在来，干给单不在这多劫呢。在那也是在你在这这，天天在白家见着我也，我你来家来带给的不来接，来那顿这顿为顿见呢。来来把那来接的来接的。realizene la moyen de ye la se je baran za la chan za loi da wai zhu zui shai je se boi de zai xie lun bia zai du dan bia zai can dan jie de jian jie zan zhui ge 强者的人爱来讲在来，全能的问题没有生个的，安个满个的年就在的，人家我这把艰难在艰难。天的没不然在来讲在路。觉得这代吞把它叫我的，看那么多半就怎么也，
Garadai denze talain kebaye Yaze jawaranze la janza loi Korave jawa nyembo mezene Kemne chunde kalai shene jai Chode namandai chunde nyelene Rado chunwa enze lai chanza lo Zambe chanchu zhe nene Neran zan nen du lo chudu Kawai chene zan zhe tara chende Samde chen yen ze lai chanza lo Tomai mene be ba de ye je Mangan da ye chan chu chen chun du Ye zhui me yong an para san ye ne Chan chu zo paran ze lai chan za lo Tu jian zha lai nyu du se ne ne Varana lo zui ne cho du Chu jian ko lo ko ne du ja na Tie ba sima lai gen zi chan za lo Yin ye go wa ngan ba tsara je je Mo de den ba zhu dai le je zoi Gora mo je ge yu de nan de Te ba ye le ye lai chan za lo Xie ba su nai be me yun den ye Yan de ye ba zhen zhe zhen bo de La mian zhe wa gen ye ra zhe we Den ba ye paran ze lai chan za lo Le lo zhe na nyu de kong we zhe Zai zhe zhen ge zai xie zai mai ru Qie me de ra zhe da we gu xie ne Nyang en da wan zhe lai chan za lo Yan dai nye dun jie bai me zhe de Ma wo zhen xie se na zo jie jie De nye de ne ren ze man zhe ne Gu dun zhe jian zhe lai chan za lo De da rai den be da boi chen den jie Zhe be zi lan de zai de ba ye Ge wei zhe wai gen ye ra jie wei De wa rai jie jie zhe la chan za lo Xia jie jia bo jie ge jian da da Ga da yin ge zhe zhe dai jian gang zai Be da zhen zhe zan bo jian da wa Den da ga na da zun ye wa zhoi Tun be me la ge zo men zheng wei Che ba zhe zhen na yan zhen jia lai Ge zai jie lan zhe ba tara jin be Lo be zan ye Don la jian za lo Xi ge dong xi me do den ba dang Ba me ba dai le wa ye dong de Zuo yin ji dian ji wei nan jie ge che be Tu wai xia jie be mo ye da du Du yi xiong la ye mian zhe ye che wo ye jian zhe jin Re za ye ba be ba la ye dong zhe Wa yun de ren zhe 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 ge jian be Le zhe le ye wang bo la zhe Za sa na ye dan be be zin ge zhun jie Ma la yan da bi qu jie le zhong A zi da yi jie we ben zhe yi jie ba ba La zhe nam jie la ma ri ju la Du ye gan xie to da yi to jie che nan ge Sa ye chen bu ngan de zhi be Na si ba ye zhi me zi wei gun jia ba Xie jie nan zi ma wei nian ma Du man de zhan be jin bei jin gu re jie Bobe jeje kala dome yore beze je shen sho zang zen ze. Ye nye che ye nye ma la ja za yen de le zo bobe top je ze. Nam je zan de ri be che wa chen go wa dan bo zhong xie zhen nen je. Den be ge je cho lai xiao la du lo zai re wo bo lai ne je xie. Le zhe le je re be che dre ye go wa lang bo be be len gen ba. Chu jie zhao ba jie me zeng ge ya e ren dui zhang be xie zhai gen jie jie. Zhen be ye zhe be sa me nge zhe nie ye tu dai nu be mu de de le jie. Ji zhe ban de shi jing xia la du yin du wa ye jia zu co lai wang zhe xin. Tu be yin dian be ji ze ji wa ye cha zu ma ren ze we wen ze ba. La ye zo ji du ba ye de la du ye jiu du ga wa ye tu ma ye ra zhan be. Xie jia ma lu ji xie yong zu ji ge ni me wa kan ji san ze ba. Ren zhe zang be xia le chang za lo za wei jia wei re zui gun zhun xin. Tam jie ye me de le rao dun zhui nie du zhi me ma ge zun be zhou. Bo de sa du xia le chang za lo jia ge le ben zhen pe lai ge jin ji. Be ma jun ne gu lai dian zhong me da da le ne sun be ga nan de. Jie ren bo jia la zo wa de me ye da bo zhi jin sa jiang wa. Nam zhe le jian te bian zhao wa de ban za lun bu zo jie yang ge wa. Xue jia ye me wo nang le zo wa de ye bo ye da ge men be ma ren de. Tang ba ye ji ye zhen me chen bo ba ye pen ba ye sim jie de la yin gen ze ba. Zhi be jia le nam la zo wa de ye ben dian zhong ne le zui jin jin zi. Ga da ye dian zhi zhen ji dian la ba san jie dian ba ye zhou zhi jin zi ba. Ke zhe le be nam la zo wa de ye jia wen de na jia zi sang bo jun. Ka wa ye chen na ban de ma me ze gan de ne na nam ga ye chen ma me. 一切那我大我心顿子，半天阿弟下来长杂了，用尽给为心年用尽过，也为动作就为结为是，让心用点就那人不去，心年等别过了。长杂了，来了。địa lên địa trở ra le địa trở ra ba địa ba ba sa ma le kan de je zhe bie ro ba je ba dai ge ba de je ra ba ma wo ye jie zi ya da bai gen zai de ge sa le na ga wai xue jian sa se le jia ye de do yin ju re ne sa ne je de zhong se ya de ba lai ji nie le pa zo ye de nie yan zhe re wei ya ba ye yan da ye zi wei ya ga ye de yan du ya jia ya la la yan zhe ye de nie ye nia yan de ya la yan ge ya ba mie yo zhe de ya ra la ye ge jia yan zi 感谢觉的呀的呀那呀家人了，让我这里别那我他来见的，你这个对这为了的。 dai chan za lo Lama Choedak Rinpoche Ma ve wa choedak me ze wa Den be so xie daman je ke nye ba Sa dian zi ba me lai gu jia za Gu nian du bei zuo lai nian zhen du Die ren zhi ye de zi zi men zi ba Zi mo san zhi ye zhi bei yan an zhi ye de Da me jie zo ye sa zhi ye ji re lai du De xue zhi bei yan zhi na ye chan ye zhi Gen de ne na men bei zhi ba ye Zhou xue ge de jie wen jie den ba Gun jian bei wa zha la chan za lo Gan gan do jie ma ru yin jia wo de Nie ma su ne yin gan yu jie su Nie me len ga ra ge yu du mo yu du Tu do wa yin zhi ye zha la ye ge jia za De da la ba ye ne de te ye da So wa ra zhe ye ga de ga ge de Me me tu jie ga ye gun jia be Sun ju de jie ya ra la ye ge jian za Che na de du xin du na ma da be De nie ko na nyu ro du do jie da Nian ju xie ye sa me la ma de Gan de me ren ze la ge jia za ma da ye da bi ye Na ma zhe ge bo ye ma do ba Jie zi ju nian ge su su Ni da ra ya ya song du su Te da ra qie jie tu jie ye Xiu le qiong wa ye de dai ge De zi ju ya bei jie na De ya pen zo yin zi du su Jie su lo ba ka nan jia Ren ba nian dai me zha xie Lan jian ge dai men de ba Den la ben ba ran zi du su Ge ne ta bei go sim lo Ga wa xi ye ra ba jie ne Nian bo zhi xie de men ju re ne Do ra jian zi wa ye to ba ra xiao Nie wa ra ye den bei nian de ya Zha bei sa da ye ga jia bei Da wa ge me da ra jia bei Ge wen pa jie wa zhe ban den jie jie yan den zhi Da jia te bei ba bu yo Yan yan de bei cin de zhi Lama jie ba ra zhi za du zu za wan zi ge ne we le zhe ba gan ge xie bian ge le ri mo Gu ne da we jie zhe wen zi tu wa la me zhou la ge jie Gan gu bei me we na se jian de ran jian dang zi zin bei zhe xie Mi xian zhen zhen ba wei ra de dang song dong le ban zin jie jiang zi Jia wa gen jie yan den zhang ye ba ji jie tu la dao ba me ba Rogan gawe de ze ograje gele kunde ningbo bela. Zumgan zebe tsemje le zebe zame de ze banje shoda. Rimnyen le jun chaja jembo la namro ningbo shala goja. Lore jazo chala rakshu ne zabdun ne renje lena. Kanla jinde tela tedrawa juje owa sela goja. Yude gunlan jembe baje je wangje minje lamshe trawa. Yanda dobe yi xie doje lang lo rewa jong la goja. Minjun yende samlen deva dan be me lun jun zhiben zebai. Gun la bende gadun jume jen jen jo ningbe xia la goja. Tome barme jigun dada la mingme tuje zikba jime. Yundu zewe namya mindrowe lama tuje jen la goja. Jinzo dabe chashe rabzo yendo la bende jime zewe. Maria mumba sewe rawa je tanwe ogra lama joja. Gunjun ngeba doje chanwa dan jambe wale yendo yomaj. Todo wangju dada minye be gong rugun gawe ningbo jola. Jamgo ngage ngozo domze de sheja malu sibe jemba. Lunde oyen jowa jiyen do ridan jowa da jen joza. Dezo yeda namda damba e yongzon saba mebe dezo. Kimbe zunze chawe jema da domzun denbe shala goja. Ningme dunde lamdan jevo je saba le jan choje ningju. Kawa danden jebe sazo la le ja do jen zenwa jeja. Lame yonde menjo ba mele dande chozan dobra kala. Onjan jungse bebe sonam je kije tuje dala seju. Kije yonden tenje be kije lame jeba. Rabda ije kova. Deda gunlan da jayan za. Toma mebe dene chanye jendrewe dende mezo ngonzo zewe danye jembo chuye je. Basa jawa jembo gunga nyingbo shangane gadenda. Yonde tseme bawa nanjo wa sonam tsemo do jaben kamsum semje damje. Do danen jawa rabdu shiye dongwa tseme ba tsejik ba cha tsalo chodo jabzu chew. Gadin jesu jeno tuje jembe jesu zonzo zo tuje jawo de tsebranze dozo dab dabro jene sowan debe sigla zebe jesu zondo zo deda yando zo wande zo sona bame le jen jembe ye jerabji rewe zala jeje wa sonam tsemo la janza chunye dambe no le ri jen dogan gawe beje nyes Tenje ningbo namzho chenye ba le zhe chenpe xiame xialan dun chenpe banga miye song chenpa nazo tabje dele me. Naman zhewen gunja temen ze lama chojen jiten gong la ze chije doje song le chije we le je sunan pa me jive. Nyande zemo zenpe tangpa cho zeme kebe ongpo gong la zha zhaxie gen zenpa ye ngondo wa saye chojo saso kandanji. Chongchang chojo mari le gong de bangje yun le jelwa zhong la de ngone chanyin chibe choba bang de le xia den ju de jia zu. Change den la lo je ju den ze ganga chunje yong su cha lang du du je song a den ze nam kwa la chu zu unan jemba birwa ba jine se wang tong nang sum den. Chukuru tabe nang wara ju lang du na ze wa sa nga ge nyambra ju tuda wang ju ye dang kan ru lan yin zen kanyan te zum chen ze be. Rebe nenga taru chenlan do kange kunche nyebe chema da lomen taban de don song babo cheba me tu tongni nyingbo sazun nyembra chaba chelan de za ze para jina zanga ze zikpa zamji tsikdan tenje be lengon shenla penpa lulen ben chenpe chenren zama chelan de yewa mebe chizu zomba da rimnye nan che junje meba Jidra juman jenle zemjen la jimba namje zimze chelan de la jen do la kunle chonam ne uzan kenam dene jangzu de Tenpe sozen chenpo za dun lan zam lan yong so chaba jo lan de bo da la dan pare wu jen de nin che zam je le koron kan do dan pa wo zo dan che be do yo de nam zhe zhe me nian ne che lan de wang de jing kro zo da yer me be sa me dong zhe ne dan ka ge la we dan we ze re me da zhe be da ye ding zhen go ma che lan de do je chang dan jam go ye me be lama choedak dan ba jin ye che parang ga ya da ge yo ma ye de le chang jo pa do da je je kyu je yun de ba ye san je dan chang jo sen ba nam de yer me be Danda kawa jeba kala la denda dende jejen jela de chungu dene chiji tuji jan minju samu lamne jeden. Dikda cheme pende zala ge tseme kade yang chenjebe nyingjin jebe chela temin denge pra samye ibe nge shiji. Chela chungsu doban de jebe gewe lame shabrun je wara sho. Kema lama shube shabrun tu chuji kade nebe kawe. Keme dala tuji chenpo. yang da do be le zhe jie do so de jie song ra sing ge nga ren de dang ge re da 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 zhang zhe sang jie gong ba ji ye len zhe we zong me zhao ba jian zhe de la yan de zhe ye bie ye zhe ye xie ye zha wa ye zhan zhe zhe yuan dian jia zhe xin le zhong zhe wa gan ye wa yin ba ye nye wa ran ye ba ye gong ba dan ba da ba ran zhe du su le zhe ba ye ce ge de ren a wa zhe we la me xia le chen za le jue jie ban de zhe jie jia zi yi nan da me da ge be yu wa ra zhe ke ne jan be xie jia la nan ba ra ge ba da zhi mo yang da zhen zhe den zhe zhe de zhe jian bai nga za la zhe kan xie ben zai me zhen a de la zhe de zhe min zhu de zhe ko na ma zhe de zhe zha jie la zhang za lu jie jie ci den de la yu ta de ye jie gang song ba de lan ke ba chi wei jia che dan dun ba ga mi nu na zhe che na le ban yi zi ye kong de zhe ji re ba de ye me la zhe gen yi de nie se ba jie lan du ye xie sen be cen zhe la yang xie nan ba ye dun da du le ba ra jiang ben ge wan du ra ba jiang nie de ngan dong ju de la do ge dan zha ye lo yang de zhe min ju de den zhe sang bo dang den be de wei jie la de jiang zhe kan zhe do ge le jiang xi zha la nan ba ra ge bei jiang jie jie song la jun de xi zhe xin ga de ma zhe bei de nie chi na jie jie du nan ba ra da ba ge we zhe ke ba na man jie nan gun du nga ba jie la zhang za lu din ba ga wei che la yan jie jian de le min da xi ye ba ra song ba ye de le xi de de na ma le de xin ju den zha ko na le song bei jiu song de ba ko nan zha ga wei de ya le se bei wan ji re jie la zhang za lu ye gen de la ye ge dang zi ba na ma la zi dang ne ce jie na ma la zhe jie xiu chen de na ma la zhe jiang du kan ge ben ge de jie ye wa ra ben la de den ba den zhe jian zhe ma dong de gun jian jie la zhang za lu jie jie le xie sen ge zhe la dan zhe ba ren den zou do jie wang bo nie re den zhe ya wa ye jian dun ba rang a de le jie jie na man da la la de ben zhu ba me zhe zhe kun ba de ya le zhe na gu ne dun den jie zhang zhe dun zhen jie ne de ba da de ye de na nyang sun bei de na ge le ren zhen de zhen zhe ji bu re ji re ba la yen de me la zhe da ne jie wo nge na yen den zhe yen den jin jie ge nang ji yen den zha ba jie lan de man de de be la sa wa zhang den de men zhe ge na man ji le zhe dong wei jie la la de be me do jie ba ra ju jie xin se be do da ba lo jo je lo jiang za lo zhe na tu jie me dong wei zai chen jie la jia shi ji jie da ran bei jiang ye jie zhi ren ba ra ju ru nya mi jie de gan ge qu ren den da yi nam man da ra sa ma na chi ma gu ga wa he me na me nga zhi ma me la de ba ji nam ba ra da la zhen zang wa qie la gan ge len de ju zhe wei go ne me de de ga jin go ne jie me de ga de chou su lun ju na de ba ra ju ru jia me be ne de wei me xie nam da le nan ge yun de le da de zha ba jian zai la de ba din zha ko ne de la da de be go ne da zi ji si ge de zhou da nian ju si la ge wei ge nam ji si ge nga da zi ba ra zo xie zha dam ji zi be zhen yan ji zhou gen ge le zhi be du ji san yan zhi len zi be dong a wan jiang gui la me xia la ge jiang zi ji ji jia wo zhou wa di men gun du jie dun de ban de sa ji chu bo ge ji jin da re wa yi ni xue zhou la dan ba ni zu nen zhi wei ni zu jia ba mo ji ji de ran xi wa xi ji ba rab de ngan za nam da ra ba me nan de de xie la ge wei ni ba jiang ji zhen ji lo wang ji wa de yin de ba me ren jin ba me xi ra sa me yin ji jia zo ye wang ji ji la ji we zhang dou dan bei de na yu jin ji den jia yin la ma ne de wei nan ba kan zhe wang bo ba ye ka lan de mi zhe ji la ji we zhang dou xi ji ma 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 la gong de ji xu ne de ne yin den zhen ji给我的me zo ji wo zo de lun den ji la ji we zhang dou mi ne mi ju jie wa ni ju an jiang bei yang ji ji zo zong ju so dan so wa zhe zhe nang de re cong zha ji la ji we zhang dou si ba gong de le ba jiang wei na me lam ne xu ji go ne ge wei xu ji ngo zo dong ba de nam da ji la ji we zhang dou zang mo lam ji jin ji le bei zhe ji zhen la man jiang bei yang zu让你觉得全能都是就都这就拉扯到这样的，特别南京中学了都这俺跟这位就像我说的，南面政界多把车都就军队就拉这个这样的，多给俺别个话他们觉得南北看别多给谁去，开别这边啥等他们这件这个就拉这个这样的，用这这边多把工作不去已经把到都了不，现在到了你话明啊外真正就拉这个这样的，对这等等因为这等在这边样当中国论的，就话老当。爸爸了这就用手就了这个讲头，咱别大边对这个些个三百样的没给东西这旁边有那当头得到的很多就了这个讲头，新末这些样当真包了，脚步起也等等的人，脚末跑了就能这些是中间就了这个讲头，民主单位定在那那边这个。你们俺样对着他们这把帮着因为昨天被上月就了这个讲头，来了就那么总把这话的干面那么拉给我白白，国真对着样样亲戚了，俺年就了这个讲头，现在是把土了成为这上面啥样能把住的，叫那么估计叫就对嘛的真正就了这个讲头，经过这边这个这把也那么那么大这都是，经过了那我是这把的晚点就了这个讲头，现在这个价格我了就真这么能给动作。将不让不让当说是去找去了这个长头，当然没事这位叫我当小家生个老妈这吧，这位经过多马样样子没不叫了这个长头，这种都不闹不香港的，去年年嘛叫我本去，这嘛没把上街人去有龙灯叫了这个长头，三位呢大爷民工去为了做到这多少，们咱们这不考话通的去成天叫了这个长头，我们这呢看了样样的叫我能别都当不得，那呢就去三样的都也你就叫了这个长头，咱们对不对？叫我把门对没去，那没去把不得去问呢，古董人在当头等到也平均叫了长头，叫我能说样大样开把开不做了，我就前来人的送了动作就熊了跟些跟着。上北下了几个长在路，上街跟街都是觉得吧，都是长街半天准备，跟街点边这没结果，我半天了没下了个着，我讲都结了这种没结，现在结果跟街，上北这半这把几年了，开边都大举请求，给早人不把了点学习，但是跟街老生见的。 lo zhe jian dong do bei do ji yo lo do la mian bo nang zhong la xian bei zhen zao nam zhe ka la zhe bo bei long zhen yin bei zhu zhe zhen mei le xie du zhe cha jin ji lo zhe lo do ji wan zhe la ci zhen chep zhen zhen ba jie gong gong du zhe lo za ba wo bo dong de zao pa ne ren zhen dun zhe bei du jie bo nan zhong zhe jiao la lo zhe jing ge zhen mian dang zhe ji chi zhe zhen bei we zhe zhe wei zhe le men ban du zhe ge zhe ji ji zhe ji wan zhe la de la chu jie nian man de zhe cong men zhe la san ge wei cha ye yong zhe de xie sun ge se zhe dong zhe wei jie ge lo ye zhe miao de la de dun kan re zhe la li ne bei nam zhe de zhe 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 de zha dan nian a de zhe ci ge jin re wei cao la de men zhe la ce me lu jie chang ju zhen de jie dong we se jie cha wei ra de pa ro qin zhe jie bei chen de ye ni zhen dan bei cao nan zhong la yu de jia zhe dan zhe bei dong da jie zhe da jie ding zhen dang zhe dan bei sen zhe chen len zhe zhen jie du jie chong wei zhen wa de la ci de la wang lu jiang ge lo jie da de ren wang jie da re de lang bo qi jie zhen de la ma la kui bei ta jie de bei so wa la jin xu ye jie wa pa ba la xu da de bei so wa de bei ya zhen ya zhen da wa de xie song ra la jian le zhe jing ge re jie ba ra jiao ra ga ge bei zo le zhe le ba ra jiang bei le zhe jie真来个学学见着我半天拉面下了讲到了，叫我跟着那些宁波的，那个顶着都也用说的，真来上班着我见着我半天拉面下了讲到，人家咱们顶着拉的别往西都就原他也，另外一节这么讲着我半天拉面下了讲到了，但半夜的那些都这样上面的拉面子包。那里的那刀把不得这半天拉面下了讲到了，别么走了，我当到保险对这了这个呢就。米西们把人都帮我把半天拉面下了讲到了，这位滚蛋太阳这位的因为没把用手这吧。今天是我说那话些半天拉面下了讲到了，这面最终单把杨白就讲究神经就把这。因这么多个人说这半天拉面下了讲到了，故意群众搞我轮到这面前白白乱点那么。米些的话用手讲这话半天拉面下了讲到了，真的研究都把它改为都รับ对些个落叶了都。脾气高啊，谁家能把我半天拉面下了讲到了，半天拉面用的去的了，这些暂时拉的了，给做这把干的这话个半天拉面这是真就了这。也真是也了，真是也本做这些给了功德，让张家娃公我三娃这宁呢真多都这这就。关键的没因呢上街家专门对这看他上班，我这街边都个就算这平台高登不要老说我，到时候某个人找了这个呢，从这前面理解对了，上片都是特别白杂这不愿这位人的说我。去年的呢，让刘老哥在他们家送面我说的嘛，老大一个马拉图说这这边就按的拉说我，可是本庄不是没有的谁呢？眼睛最真白的，简单人些你把人都不这种准备下了说我，出去这种单别用钱当当啊3年单别9年，都这么跟别少见这别绝对关键你话说我，高上当不上街多人别这种啥街拉面都见，研究老些去见可能就高上对这年都说我，就这这些那老我就家里年代吧这边那就，那边也没都把老人别这边走进找了说我，我见别嘛的我见别嘛对这嘛也就都这怎么样上这不。大家对们我说晓得都弄得那我到了说我，估计刚把我真是吃到王军定个说我，但见叫做我说真多个偷偷女外的老说我，他也对这看了300斤，你就知道社会多的，个性当当改变这个的出面那么多叫老说我，今天再把那个不知道他现在公办全部真的改变，他也我说来当年就到看见那时候就老说我，去年俺来居民这个的对的了没拉那我。现在无用得不了这把个，现在龙田在老说，老三对这叫做关键年，龙田这个在外讲真，对你本着上不这等呗，你在那么大真要说，可别讲在咱们这这边这，你下滚了这样，中国过去就把说话的，看见这个那没真子，大家老说啊对不对？对的那讲究宁不，咱们土地教育就是呢，对你很久这把清楚，看给小生一来真正就全能对了把眼睛。罗杰将我查瓦就姐担保求职结尾这些说结尾工作样的老苗的这面去也别拉拢去， Sadalam je yende razan dorje jange gomba nyudo jo bandela menambra davala geze zayan lodam jinzele bra tongwe moge jela me chen la zem la enju bara jo.
Recording stopped.
Wake you up from the samadhi of deep meditative concentration. Thank you everybody for being there. I felt that this morning I needed to do this chanting, which usually they will do on the anniversary of Great Master. They all assemble together. They all do this chanting. So I thought I could use your company and do these prayers. Thank you. And you've been doing meditations very, very good. Now this morning's topic of the talk is very relevant to what I was doing. I was doing all the chanting is more pure speech, more right speech. So usually in the monastery we spend hours reciting the praise to the Buddha, the stotras. They call stotras means psalms or prayers and praises. And what I did just then consists of renewing of the bodhicitta vows, and then recollecting the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, the Sutra of recollecting the Triple Gem, and then chanting the 12 verses praising the 12 great deeds of the Shakyamuni Buddha, which is always a very good meditation. And then did all the prayers to the Nalanda Panditas, starting with the early disciples of Buddha, such as the Mahakashapa and Ananda and Shanavastin, Upagupta, Didika, Krishnapa, Sudarshana, and then Nagarjuna and Aryadeva, and all of the amazing qualities. Each of them had one verse chanting. So, and all the way down to the Padmasambhava, bringing of Buddhism. And then from Padmasambhava you pray this is offering praise, praising to the three great Dharma kings of Tibet, and then of course great and a second wave of Dharma in Tibet, Lord Atisha from Bengal, the Indian master, as well as the Tibetan Dromtonpa, the founding fathers of the Kadampa lineage, and then particularly praise to the Mahasiddha Virupa, particular praise to Mahasiddha Virupa written by Sachen Gunga Nyingbo in his pure vision. He saw Virupa for 33 months continuously he saw, and during that he received complete teachings, and then he spontaneously sang the praise to Mahasiddha Virupa, and then followed by the praise to Sachen Kunga Nyingbo, Lobo Sonam Tsemo, Jizun Chakpa Gyansen, Sakipandita Kunga Gyansen, Shogya Pakpa, and then Ngorchen. And finally, what I just finished is the praise to Tsarchen Losal Gyatso, whose anniversary is today. Of the Eightfold Noble Path, to be able to practice the third one, which is the topic of today, right speech, you definitely need to have a right view. Without the right view, we are often expressing our wrong views. So you can't have right speech when you have wrong views. So that's why you have the right view first, which we discussed already. And second is that if you have right view, then you have the right attitudes. You have the right attitude, And so therefore you learn how to moderate the kind of speech that are useful to say and that are not beneficial, and therefore restrain, and so on. So the person in our everyday life situations, usually people are great successful people are made by their skillful ability to be able to speak, ability to articulate, and that are beneficial and useful to the others. So right speech or even ordinary articulate people are usually becomes the leaders and great champions of the society, even in an ordinary sense. But I'm going to talk about what consists of the wrong speech, because if you don't know what is wrong speech, you can't know what is right speech. So because wrong speech is the suffering and truth of suffering, and origin of the wrong speech is usually desire, hatred, jealousy, ignorance, and arrogance. When person's mind is completely convoluted by these root afflictions, then what they will think and say becomes none other than harmful use of speech. And their own mouth is producing cause of suffering to others, and they don't think they have any consequences. So therefore, let's look at some aspects of the what is wrong speech. Wrong speech doesn't mean necessarily spoken words. These days, particularly, people are writing a lot, so we can cause people are using writing on social media, or because they create blogs, or they write articles. They even write books, and we have amazing authors whose books are sold in millions. But while his books may be read by millions, but nearly that many millions who don't read his book hates him and want his head, because what he wrote in the book was full of disregard and condescending, harsh, abusive, insulting, and very, very hurtful to the whole people. So when we talk about the wrong speech, we're talking about violence. We're talking about hurting. We're talking about what actually harms people is poisonous language, poisonous use of communication. So wrong speech here refers to under the influence of the root afflictions like greed, jealousy, hatred, anger, and resentment. People usually use those words without knowing they are wrong. People usually don't use wrong speech consciously thinking it is wrong. They think they're saying it to right some other wrongs. Poor thing. So people who are using wrong speech are double demerit. Not only they're using wrong speech, but they don't even know they're saying it harmful, and it's have more consequences, evil consequences to them and their friends who they try to protect or help, because their motivation is completely poisoned by the wrong views and ill will and so on. But unfortunately, most people who use wrong speech or wrong writing or wrong messages are deluded. So we need to be kind to the people who use wrong speech ourselves. Because if we don't have right attitude to the people who use wrong speech, we wouldn't hesitate to use wrong speech to what we think is we are righting the wrong. One wrong doesn't right the other. Wrong kind of wrong right the other. Only right attitude can right the wrong of other people. Not by saying you are wrong, but understanding they are unconscious. They're so deluded. The information is incorrect. It's a misperception. It's heresy, and they never checked their fact carefully, and they just stirred it up, and then that's how they. So in order to understand what wrong speech of other people, we need to have the right attitude in seeing that how they unconsciously are saying things, writing things, and spreading gossip, and scorning other people, and causing schism with other people, as they're protecting some people when they're actually doing more harm than what they think they were doing help. But they are unconscious. That's what they're doing. So therefore, if you don't have the right attitude of the wrong speech users or people who use wrong speech, we wouldn't hesitate to duplicate their wrong speech by our own retaliation. All the patience, practice of patience, is not retaliating wrong speech by others by hopefully having the right attitude, which is the second noble truth we talked last week. By the way, those of you who did not get to listen to the first two sessions, the first eight of the Eightfold Noble Path is right view. Second is right attitude. So these two are already on YouTube. It's very important to see the whole eightfoldness of the path. These 8 topics link each other, and that works as a beautiful beautiful whole. And so, reason people can't tolerate wrong speech of others, and they themselves wouldn't hesitate to use venomous language, is because they don't themselves have the right attitude, which is the second one. Why they don't have right attitude? Because they don't have the right view. And so that's why it is important to understand what constitutes wrong speech. Wrong speech is usually people don't understand subjectively their wrong speech. They will say and hear what people say wrong speech, and that is wrong. And what do you do when other people use wrong speech, such as harsh speech? They're using very unkind words, and that hurts people's heart. In Tibetan, we're saying, "Tsigla choncha megyang." Meaning tarawar puk, There's words is not really weapons by themselves. But when someone says use harsh words, it completely cut the people's heart into pieces. Harshness is using very attacking, very hurtful, very accusing somebody, or using really calling names, using harsh words. It's actually hurt the other person so much. And unfortunately, the person saying those harsh words do not know they're using harsh words. At the time, anyway. At the time, they may know it in hindsight. They go, only in hindsight. The people are all good at realizing hindsight. They should be good. When they practice Dharma, they should become good at knowing in real time. They should be able to exercise self-restraint there and then. When they have the right attitude, right view, then they say, oh, this is my attitude. I'm not going to voice. It's bad enough to have an attitude, let alone voicing it through my mouth. And then it will land in somebody's heart, and then people will quote me, and this is going to... Many people's relationships are destroyed by harsh languages. You wouldn't believe. It's not of any major problem. What they say behind their back, and say about them, and this kind of bad mouthing has destroyed years built relationship to irreparable damages. Why? Because noble truth of suffering is bad mouthing. And the origin of that mouthing is anger, resentment, and ill will, and thinking that someone has done terrible wrong to us, and we truly believe it's they did to me. We have no understanding how everything is interdependent, and because of that, we don't even know that our own retaliatory speech that going to use is going to escalate double the trouble. We have no idea. So that's why we have to have the right attitude to understand wrong speech of other people. Instead of being negatively swayed by someone's gossip or someone's whatever, you see, oh, he is so attached, he idolized, he's so jealous, oh, she's so ignorant, and they are so ill will over that. Their perception is mostly incorrect, but they think it's all correct, and therefore they're using such harsh words. What a pity! And then instead of being adversely harmed you by their bad mouthing, but you will fence it off and try to de-escalate their bad mouthing so that it doesn't get disproportionate consequences to other people. So the harsh speech is that people have estranged relationship. Why? Because one used harsh speech over one thing, and that went far too much, and the other wouldn't tolerate. Other said even worse, and there was really no big argument other than using the bad language. So one has to understand this first truth of suffering and truth of origin of wrong, of bad mouthing. Bad mouthing is the behavior, and it's the usually truth of origin is action and affliction. Action is bad mouthing. When a person is speaking bad mouthing, that is the truth of suffering, origin of suffering. Origin of suffering, and then suffering is caused by saying to other people, it disturbs their ear. Most people have very, very intolerant ears. Most people's ears are not made with right speech hearing, right hearing. These don't have right hearing. They don't they don't sell right hearing ears, That would be good. If they were selling the hearing aids with the right hearing. Very good. Would be good. You should design a hearing aid that you wouldn't hear those bad words. They become muzzled up. When people say bad words, they got muzzled up. You just become music. It would be good. Like the chanting I was doing, it would become chanting. Would be good. As soon as people say bad words, they become chanting. Oh, very good. We should have a device to just cancel those bad words coming to your holy ears. Now, mindful people who understand the right attitude, he's saying this, out of his own anger and resentment and unrealistic expectation and ignorance and over expectation, and that is the reason, poor thing. So then, even if they say harsh words to you or harsh words to someone you respect or love, you wouldn't be adversely affected, but you instead will develop compassion to the person, and you might be able to even calm them. How much of their neurosis are coming out of their bad mouthing or bad writing or whatever it is, instead of saying, "Look, this is what he says. Oh, this is what she wrote. It must be all true," and then you become completely lost the plot. Right attitude enables us to understand the wrong speech of other people, whether it's harsh, abusive language, insulting, critical. Some people are very critical. They always criticize. They only talk about the faults of other people. And then most people are very vulnerable. As soon as they hear one thing, which might be not even true, maybe partially true, maybe mostly hearsay, they think that's all true. Mostly wrong. Mostly fake news. They call now the fake news. Fake news. And when they tell news, it's usually only the negative. They don't tell the good one. They don't tell the good news at all. They never tell good language. So there's no right speech because people aren't telling about good things. They're only telling about the bad things. So all this we have to understand the truth of origin of suffering is bad mouthing. Bad mouthing under the influence of ill will, resentment, anger, jealousy, and arrogance and judgment, and all of this is causing the person to use bad mouthing. So the truth of origin is affliction plus the bad mouthing, because affliction causes the person to say bad speech. So we need to, when we have the benefit of understanding right attitude, the second of the Eightfold, we should understand someone using those bad languages and not let that become our suffering. Usually most people are exposed to someone's bad mouthing, then they become stirred up, They become stirred up, they become so poisoned, they become so destabilized, and they themselves just pour out more negative words on top of the other person's. And that's why it becomes like a virus. It spread as if they're doing a lot of good work, Who created the crisis? Delusion creates the crisis. People don't create the crisis. This person who doesn't know how to control their own affliction create their own crisis. Then later on, those people who speak bad things about the people, you first thought they were all telling the truth and there was some very great benefit. You know what happened? In the later, they themselves become so alienated as a result of their story or whatever they told, whatever they wrote, and they almost like so completely alienated from everyone because everybody become negatively affected by that person. It didn't benefit at all. We are not saying there are, because society as a whole already have a lot of cases against people defaming others. Defamation. A lot of the newspapers are always paying more defamation cases than anything. Why? Because they think there's a freedom of speech. Yeah, freedom of speech, that's sure. You have a freedom of speech have consequences. Sakya Pandit wrote, he says, oh yeah, freedom of speech is good. But he says the parrot who is very talkative, he's end up in the cage because he's talkative. He says, crows and other birds fly freely, nobody cage them because they're never talkative. So free speech, yes, free speech has consequences. There are some celebrated authors in the world. They wrote million books, sold millions, but they themselves can't go in the crowd because so much bounty is on their head because they hurt all the Muslims. They wrote such. So that kind of, in the name of freedom of speech, people don't realize how terrible they are. Now I want to talk about the consequences of wrong speech, not only in immediate this life, but in Buddhist teaching it talks about the karmic consequences of wrong speech that one practiced in the past life. Person will be born with a lot of voice defect, if at all, even as born as a human being, voice defects, and foul breath, and speech defect, and stuttering, and some completely mute. And even if you have no voice defect in your speech, whatever you say, nobody will believe you because you have always misled other people. And whatever you say, nobody take heed to it because of your negative use of speech in the past life. This life, nobody listens to you, even you're telling the truth. And because of that, you have no voice. You might as well be mute. You might as well mute. Some people are totally born mute because they've said so many bad things, wrong speech in the past life. They may be born with a beautiful body. They may be very sharp in the mind, but they're completely decapacitated by becoming mute. Of course, these are of course teachings talk about it. Buddhist teachings on the law of karma of the wrong speech. Now, so having said that, now let's talk about what is right speech. Because right speech is when a person practices right speech, he or she must have the right view. And right view doesn't mean my view, your own view. Right view should be how fair it is. Is it going to be beneficial? So you have to have very, very, very unbiased view about the nature of things and then right attitude. If you have the right view and right attitude, then you will be able to speak. Because of the right view and the right attitude, your mind probably is not overtaken by any of the strong three afflictions. Because of that, you will be able to speak a language, a way of communicating, which is pleasing, inspiring, gentle, and tender, and loving, and respectful, harmonious, and very careful choice of words, choice of tones, and probably intervened by a lot of silence in between. Very good, because you want to be careful. All those words, you don't want a slippery lips. You don't have a slippery lips. You wanted to have a very unslippery lips, and so you mind your speech, mind your thoughts, because both of these have consequences. And so when you practice right speech, when you practice right speech, even practice of love, even practice of compassion, even practice of patience is what you don't say. Even if a person says this to you, you just say, it's bad enough one person saying it, what the need of me reduplicating it? And feel pitifully, bear the harsh pain or suffering that other person seems to be inflicting on you. Maybe say speaking badly about someone you love or someone you respect, for instance. So it's very good. So how can you, when you are dealing with that, you are able to practice patience. You can almost paraphrase in your head. This is what he really means. He doesn't really want to say that. He doesn't know he's saying that. What he really wants to say is probably this. You can think like that. Or you can soften. You can remove the sting out of someone's sharp words, bad words, by yourself having the right attitude. You see what I mean? Oh, do you mean this? And if they really get to hear what you're saying, they say, oh, really? That's what I want to say, but it didn't come out that good. Oh, poor thing. So they're basically incapacitated by their lack of mindfulness of speech. Mindfulness speech is, first of all, person needs to know the words. That if I said this, and if I was the listener to these words, how would I take it? One should think like that. So, right speech only comes from one who has the right mind. One who has a mind in his hand, thought, right attitude in his hand, and hopefully also right view. If you have that, it's not so much about what is and what isn't, but what will be useful for you to say that can cancel even the wrong that is out there, that can de-escalate the conflicts or problem or misunderstanding it there. Therefore, you might use very, very harmonious language, very diplomatic language, not just in a lip service, but really sincerely saying, "What can I do?" You got to feel the tenderness in your heart, saying, "If I said this, and if I'm the listener, I wouldn't take it very well. So I need to really be careful, So it's like your tools, Your tools, we want to have tools we want to sharpen our knife and sharpen our things. We wanted to make sure we have to sharpen our intellect and mind, Your mouth could be really, mouth is not designed to hurt anybody. People brush their teeth, they put even some lipsticks and looks, and they want to look mouth beautiful and teeth beautiful. They pay a huge amount of money to the dentist. But what comes out of that is a kind of a dysentery or diarrhea. The verbal diarrhea, they call all this. Diarrhea coming from the other end is bad enough. But at least that one is actually have a place where you can go and flush. But where is the place you clean the mess caused by verbal diarrhea? There's no medicine for verbal diarrhea. Where do you go? You wouldn't believe how many of people's relationship that are not in good space is because what they said to each other. And they may spend money to love them, or they may give car to them, you may give education to them, they may give diamond ring to them, they may give amazing things to each other, but what they say cancels them out. Who wanted to wear your little diamond ring if he calls you bitch, Who wanted to sit on your beautiful sofa if he calls you harsh words? Nobody. And even parents couldn't have the children. And quite a lot of children doesn't want to face the parents because they have experienced so much verbal abuse, so much verbal abuse would be insult and condescending and put down and you name it. A lot of the interpersonal relationship is all caused by bad mouthing, mindlessness of speech, very violent communication. We call violence. That's violent. This verbal violence causes more long-lasting pain than physical violence. Physically, if you got injured by falling on the soccer field and you have laceration all over, then in a couple of weeks, no problem. But those who have been hurt by verbal violence, of insult, and that kind of splinter has set in your heart, it doesn't want to go out. People still would not forgive or wouldn't talk to other because they don't want to talk to the other, but they're always talking about the other to other people. And what that was, they're all bad mouthing. Oh, he's such this. Oh, she was this. Oh, my mother was this. Oh, like this. And while you're not talking to her nicely, you're talking to bad things about her all the time. So these kind of incessant negative habits of bad mouthing is the opposite of cause of happiness. It's a cause of misery. So, therefore, in Buddha's teachings, the fully enlightened Buddha's teaching contain the practice of mindfulness is to practice the mindfulness of right speech. And in retreat and in you are doing a lot of silence, and we call noble silence. But not all silence are noble, I tell you that. A lot of silence are miserable silence. They're not talking to each other. Why? Because they're miserable. They hate each other. So silence doesn't mean necessarily noble. There's a lot of silence between people. They're not talking to each other, but they're talking in the heart with the knives and a lot of weapons in the mind. So harboring ill will, if one has a wrong attitude, it's very difficult to come with the right speech. So, because what comes out is what's in here. So one needs to be first cognizant of one's own attitude towards someone or something. Even someone makes mistake. Who doesn't, But what kind of right do we have to pass a judgment and then tell it as if it is him, it is her, and so on, as they themselves have no infraction or transgression as a human being. And so saying bad words to other people or about other people is poisonous. So one who loves somebody, who is kind to somebody, usually the kindness is mainly small acts of right speech, small good use of kind, soft, gentle, harmonious, respectful, forgiving, understanding, thoughtful, and useful speech. When one is able to moderate and self-restrain one's mouth, that is a person who has that little bit of the what you call mindfulness to mind their ill will and wrong views in the first place. Because people might want to practice right speech, but they couldn't practice right speech because what's in their heart and emotions are negative. So particularly about person, if they think, if they are very ungrateful to their father, as soon as they come with the father, argument will start. Why? Because they all vented in there. The daughter comes home to visit the father. She puts on a very nice dress and looks very clean and very pretty, and the shirt and earring all matches, and very nice lips and all things. But what comes out, she says, from his mouth is too very disrespectful, very rough, very harsh, very abrasive. And what was the purpose of her visit? To vent her neurosis. Her clothing didn't do any job. Her lipstick did any job. All she came to was to vent her vengeance. So that's why we need to meditate how to unseat ill will, how to get rid of the ill will by breathing out. If you have any ill will, just breathe them out, and breathe in all the goodwill towards the Father. He's already old, I just heard. I got an email from one of the old student couple. They moved northern New South Wales at least 10 years ago, and now they're both old, and she's particularly sick. She's losing her voice. She hardly can say much that anybody can hear and understand, let alone her. But her partner usually understand because they're partner in that. They're so close that he understands what she's saying, but nobody else she does. Now she says that he even doesn't understand anything, And they have so much anguish and towards each other because they both are deteriorating their age because they're old and they both have the illnesses, their conditions, and one isn't stronger to help the other. One of the sufferings or sleeplessness at night, getting up in the night, waking up many times, interrupt the other. Other wasn't got very agitated because he is going to the toilet many times or not being able to sleep disturbs him. He's just as easily agitated. So they're not really. They're cuddling up in a bed together, helping each other. They're just all quarreling each other. Why you do that? Why you put on the light? And then they not only the sleeplessness of their health condition, then they say bad words. And fortunately for her, she said she couldn't say any words anymore. So he doesn't know what she's trying to say, but he still can say bad words to her. So therefore, because she get more harmed, because he at least still he can say bad words and she can't. And of course, but nevertheless, he knows that she really isn't happy with him because she's getting up too many times and so on. And when I didn't know this, I said, look, I'll call you on Monday. We have a chat. She says, then she writes me a long email saying, unfortunately, I have no voice because her illness has lost her voice, So people maybe, sometimes it's good that you can't say anything because it's a blessing. It's a blessing because you don't have any power to project any voice. Your voice, there's no voice cord working, Of course, there are some aging and some illnesses. Yeah, you don't have much voice. You can see a lot of people are very old and they're in a nursing home and they hardly say anything for the last 2 years. But when you're going through that kind of is losing voice because of aging. But she's somewhat quite happy because she can't say those things to him, because he's already miserable anyway. So, and then if she couldn't say it, she says for one reason, he says, I'm really glad I have no voice because I can't say hurtful things. But I'm also very, very, very sorry to myself because I can't speak to me. She can't speak to me. I said, don't you worry, you write quite well. So she wrote me this letter. So you wouldn't believe how many of the tattered relationships and estranged relationship and hurt and anger and sad relationship between amazing close relations because they would not have the kindness and love that they can use through speaking kindly. It's no point sending good gifts, or no point sending love heart or anything like that. When you are with them, you can't be thoughtful to say the few kind words. So therefore, right speech, which is Eightfold Path, we're talking about the Noble Truth of Path. Being able to use right speech is the walking the path. When you are able to practice right speech, you have to be very mindful. You have to be disciplined. You have to be mindful. And you have to put yourself in other person's shoes. What am I saying this for? How will they take it? Would this improve the situation or deteriorate the situation? That kind of few key questions when you ask, and then you are really cognizant. You're very conscientious, and therefore you are mindful. You're mindful before you say. They say the full complaints about the consequences, wise quarrels with him with the cause he's about to create. That's a good one. Wise quarrels with him the possible what is scheming that are negative, and he quarrels with him and try to restrain him. Wise is always busy restraining him. Fools is always beating himself up for what he did So because he always complains the consequences, wise always argues with the causes. So mindful, right speech is people have to be mindful of exercising restraint for the possible harmful words, language, and words you are able to use, you are about to use. So one shouldn't be using harsh and hurtful words, joking. Some people joke, but they're passing somebody out. They think they're friends, they can say this, but they can't hesitate to use any harsh and four-letter words, Like in Australia. Some people can't use any sentence without using four-letter words. Incredible. Incredible. These are people who are educated, who have good profession and who's otherwise looks pretty good, but just where they speak, just incredible. People have no caution as what they're saying, and let alone what they're writing. There are many people are locked up because they wrote something, an article, a story. And now they're paying millions because they wrote whatever they thought. Then even they checked the facts properly. It was all motivated by try to create crisis, try to create problem, try to ruin somebody's life. The intention is not for the betterment of the society. Intention is to destroy some people's life. Like how many gossips they write about the royal family and all those things. Just can't imagine. The princess passed away so long time ago. They're still talking about that. Try to sell the newspaper. What are they trying to achieve? They're trying to create all these sufferings. What's their intention? So it's because of the whole idea of intention is not checked. They think they are reporting facts. What's the fact? What's the fact? It's a matter of whose perception. Whose perception? His facts is dictated by perception. There is no fact that is truly existing fact. It's a concept. It's totally to your each other's conception. So when one is not able to check one's viewpoint and attitudes, right view has no ability. Right speech does not happen. Right speech only happens when we are able to mind our thoughts and our views, whether it's coming from the very, very vindictive views or a really condescending view or righteous and kind of a judgmental view. Or as soon as you realize they're judgmental, they're not fair, then you don't want to voice your judgmental views, will you? When you know what you're saying is going to hurt somebody, you realize it's going to have evil consequences. What will be the benefit if I say this, if I wrote this? What is my intention? So when one person checks his or her intention, they usually have either some kind of ill will or anger or jealousy or whatever. As soon as they discover that, they say, oh, this is poison. My intention is not good, and it's whatever if the fact is, my intention on top of that is going to accelerate and make things many times worse. So what I'm going to say about that, so that's what people usually say, thank you, no comment. No comment. No comment means I will mind my mouth, mind my speech, I will practice loving kindness. No comment is a loving kindness practice. Most people doesn't mean they have no opinion, but they know their opinion has got no great benefit. It's mostly deluded opinions, wrong view anyway. So what's the point of sharing wrong views? So practice noble silence. So what does the right speech constitute? Right speech constitutes silence, noble silence. Right speech constitutes speaking kindly. And if there is a big gap between misunderstanding between two people, you don't make the gap bigger. You still try to say nice things in order to not widen the gulf of misunderstanding before people. So you still speak respectfully towards the others, and you try to speak harmoniously, saying that there's even actually a lot more friendship between the two than they themselves misunderstanding. You need to sort of try to using very diplomatic language. You should be speaking lovingly towards the person you're speaking to, and and then they will respect you. They will pay heed to you, because you're speaking something that they do not hear very often. Those who use harsh language and untruthful language by themselves, and you use the similar language, then they think they're getting away. They think they have real facts. But if you say, look, if you are skillfully able to say, by the way, what you're saying I can take, but what's the benefit of saying this? What advantage you will get? How would it improve your relation with the person? And what would be the objective of that? When you put in that, all of a sudden they come to their senses. Oh, yeah, I shouldn't be saying this. Thank you very much. That's a real friend. Real friend can mitigate. Real friend can dissuade people from engaging in their poisonous language, gossips, or ill will, or resentment, and scorn, and whatever they're saying. You can see most of the negative stories are more not about who is talked about, but who is doing the talking. Has a lot to do with the one who's writing, a lot to do with the one who's saying. It's very little to do with who that they are talking about. It's their own vengeance, their own resentment, because they have some kind of unresolved issues with similar things, and then they straight away right against the other people, other gender, or whatever the case might be, because they had a 20 years ago story within their own mind that they didn't resolve about that, and then all of a sudden it can flare them up, So it's all to do with themselves. Have very little to do with the very little to do with the subject itself. Why? Because they are completely, as I say, I first obscuration. They suffer from the obscuration of I first. The I first obscuration, I thought about it yesterday very much, because this is called all-pervasive conditioning. In technical Buddhist terminology, they call all-pervasive conditioning. They don't call I first obscuration. But there are texts like Nagarjuna's writing. It says, first one thinks of I, and then one becomes so wrongly conceiving of that, and then everything become machinate from that. So I first obscuration is the all-pervasive conditioning. Person doesn't know. That has nothing to do with the thing you're talking about, but who's talking the language, who's writing that, has a lot to do with the issue is all to do with the writer or speaker than the subject itself, that which they talk about with a lot of vengeance and so on. So there are lots of issues. People have a lot of issues come up, Why? When they talk about something, a lot of issues come up. Why? Because they're all I first obscurations. Everybody got a lot of I first obscurations. And then they all get stirred up. Some people don't know anything whatever. They don't have any strong opinions about it. Why? Because they don't have particular I first obscuration related to that kind of issues. So one wrong view can become very, very infectious to those who have I first obscuration, related with gender, related with ethnic kind of resentment and vengeance, and against culture, against neighbors, against who or whatever they are, against other gender, or like that. It's amazing. A lot of them are all I first obscurations. And most people wouldn't even think about I first obscuration. Because it's so subtle. If you say greed, hatred, or whatever, then people can understand. I first obscuration is a cognitive obscuration. They don't even know that the importance of self, is the root origin of the wrong speech. So one needs to be cautious about the I first obscuration, and then try to practice I second. Maybe we can put I second, the other first. other first mindfulness, then can practice right speech. If I say this, put others first. When I say this to him, what would do to him? And then you become thoughtful to use diplomatic, soft, tender, loving, and caring language. TLC. Where does TLC come from? Tenderness. First tenderness. Tenderness, lips is quite tender, actually. Lips is quite tender. And tender is the heart. Heart has to be tender. Heart has to be very, very tender. And loving is also both tender and loving, both very emotionally, very soft, very intelligently chosen tender feelings and language. And then you will be using the kind of words that looks like caring them, empathetic to them, and then with that empathy and sympathy, you would not use hurtful, destructive, violent, aggressive, insulting, accusation type of language. You wouldn't use it. Why? Because you have the other first, other first consideration, and then what I do that will benefit them, that will improve the situation. When you have that, then you have to be really, really careful in choosing the words and say in the right tone, not only what words to use, but when to say. Often it's not appropriate time to say, particularly now, particularly in front of somebody, particularly when they are really, really so disturbed. So you consider all of these things. Because of that, you say, oh, this is not right place, this is not right time, and this is not right state of mind I myself am. So I better control myself. So usually, right speech is usually minded speech. You mind your speech, and you would not use anything harmful that is there. When a person does speak, you know what the right speech person is? Right speech person has a voice. Whatever he or she says, people listens. And they will be honored. They will be articulate. They will be eloquent. And they will be useful. And they will not be harmful. That's what Buddha, they listened to Buddha. That's what the monks said, thus I've heard, They heard something really so useful. They have to quote. Some he said, she said is good, Some he said, she said is good. All the Buddha's disciples were quoting the Buddha. Thus I've heard. They said, I am the one who heard. It's not from somebody else. I was myself there with my own two pieces of tendon working as an ear. I was there myself. Lots of people said, oh, I heard him say that. They say that. They're always quoting someone else's, which might not be completely reliable anyway. If you heard from the mouth of the horse, if you heard from the mouth of the horse yourself, then it's true. But otherwise, you wouldn't believe how most of the story get wrong. Quite a lot of newspaper people, I know occasionally I have quite a lot of newspaper people, when I was doing early in the 90s, doing a lot of Tibet-related things and stories, and they come to interview, and they really sit there, they put this microphone on, they get cassette recorder on, they sit there nearly 2 hours, and then they go. And when they write story, oh, so many wrong. They heard me. They came to interview me, and they actually sat down and wrote everything. But quite a lot of things are completely wrong. Because they thought that's what I meant. But no, I didn't mean that. They're not only factually wrong, of course, names, spelling, of course, wrong. Quite a lot of wrong. They just had no idea. Why? Like that, most people assumes that that's what he said. But actually they didn't, that's their assumption. That's not what the person really just said. So most of the time we misunderstand, even between two loving people, very loving people. Often there's a lot of misunderstanding. The one person says this, the other person thought you were saying this. But he was thinking you were saying this, but you were saying this. So what is intended was not understood. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, lot of confusion, lot of ignorance, lot of miscommunications. And so all the sufferings is as a result of the unmindful, unthoughtful, ungentle, untender, unloving, uncaring, and very sporadic, destructive emotion dictated voice concerns become often poisonous, And it is said that people who are in Nagarjuna's writing on the precious garland, he talks about the karmic consequences of not only the immediate habit and experience of the person. It says that if they are those who have used very bad language and bad mouth and so in the past lives, this life they will have lots of oral problems and voice problems, and also bad breath and bad body odor, and not only that, they will have speech defect, and even if they say the truth, nobody will respect them, nobody will believe them, and because of the karmic consequences of using harsh, unskillful language in the past. But those who actually practice right speech in the past, they will be born in places in their life situation where they command a lot of respect, and they never say anything that is harmful, divisive, hurtful, negative. They don't retaliate people's bad mouthing. They might even forgive them and tolerate them, because they know the sentient beings are deluded, and you could not be hurt by other people's suffering, because they don't know how the sufferings are created to themselves even. So therefore you understand, you have the right view when somebody says bad words to you, or those people who have practiced right speech, they will be exposed to such bad mouth people. Buddha had a lot of people who challenged him, who accused him. You wouldn't believe how many people accuse Buddha in all kinds of things, But did it harm the Buddha? No. He tolerated them. He didn't criticize them. He didn't put them down. He didn't try to right their wrong. He just embraced them with loving kindness, and so on. And so all practitioners who you can definitely right the wrong by not using wrong speech. You can right the wrong by sending loving kindness, and pass no comment. If possible, forgive them. Let go. Don't hear them as anything but their sufferings, poor thing. And hear them as echoes. Hear them as syllables or letters, not fully grown up words, So try to break up the syllables. There's vowels and consonants and hearing and all that, So don't see the inherently existing nature of the words that has any power to harm. We are much bigger than words, We see the emptiness of words. We see the emptiness of language. We see the emptiness of phrases. And so when you're able to do that, you couldn't be upset. You couldn't be angered. Either people say bad things to you directly or behind your back, or whatever, or someone you love or respect, they speak bad about others and towards somebody. You just see them as their neurosis, their story, but that's it, and that's their story, and people always are dictated by their own defilements when they don't have any wisdom and compassion. Because of that, the practice of the right speech is often no comment, which is noble silence. And when you do say things, you say things respectfully, harmoniously, with carefulness, with thoughtfulness, so that if you say something, it's not so much to make your point so that you clear your name type of thing. No. your name is already a words anyway, so why you want to clear another words by another words? You're not the name anyway, You don't think you are the name, though, It's very good to forget your name. It's very, very useful, when you forget somebody's name, you forget the person. Very good. Person maybe lives in the next suburbs or in next the other city or whatever, and when you can't remember the person's name, you don't have any problem. That's very good. So don't get stuck on the names. People, even if people say things bad to you or bad to your mom or bad to your friends, or, don't retaliate. Don't try to defend others. That's what things get escalate because of that. Just see them as another childish human beings. The words are made out of consonants and vowels. Usually without vowels, even if there are half a dozen consonants, doesn't make any sense except in Russian. I don't know, Russians have a lot of consonants, there's hardly any vowels, but they seem to still pronounce them. I couldn't believe it. In English, no matter how many consonants there are, but if there's not a single vowel, you couldn't even make a sense of it. So, if there's no vowel, what is the four-letter words? The three consonants, that has no meaning. But if you see the vowel is the problem, just when the person says the word vowel itself, it doesn't hurt you. So what is that? See, that's the emptiness of the words and the syllables. It's only interdependent origination. Even if you use a four-letter words, or I might use a six-letter words in Tibetan, but for you it's nothing. It's Om Mani Padme Hum thing. What do you know whether it was a mantra or insult? Who knows? When you don't know the language, even if all the vowels are consonant there, it wouldn't hurt you. This is very good. So that shows the emptiness of the language, emptiness of the sound. And then don't get caught up in that. And don't become so vulnerable and offendable by people's use of words. This is very good meditation, particularly those of you who know a few mantras, What's the point of those mantras if you can't guard your ear? In the teaching it says the point of the reciting mantra is that not only recite formally, but when you during post-meditational period, you should hear all sound as mantras. Very good. That's a good mindfulness of right speech. Hear all sound as a mantra, not just people speaking to you, but also sounds of the noisy neighbor when you're trying to sleep on Saturday night, and you should hear them as a free music, free music. Instead of thinking they're noise, to some people it's a music and a party. To other people it's a noise pollution. It's amazing. It depends whether you are in the party or not in the next door. But if you are invited to the party by the next door, you go inside, they're making noise, you don't think that you are making noise pollution. But only when you go on the other side and you're not invited, then you see that there are noise pollution. See, it's all in your mind. It's not in the noise, not in the music. So, sometimes I know some Buddhist groups in different parts of the world, and Sunday morning, the meditation. When we meditate, the neighbor just start them lawnmower. Exactly the same time. Very good practice. Very good practice. So when they're playing all the noise of the lawn mowing, and they think, of course, you are also making some noise. So our center when open, sometimes when we go to the center, we got a new neighbor. This new neighbor, she got a little office, and she does counseling. So when we do once a week of chanting there, she says, "Oh, we can hear your noise. You can hear noise, but it's nice noise." She says, "Nice noise. I don't mind. I don't mind your noise." She said, "I used to have all kinds of neighbors I couldn't tolerate, but your noise is quite okay," she says, when you're chanting. Because she knows we're chanting or something, because we don't have that kind of... So it's all in our mind, whether a person said this to you or not. When you're so offendable, when you're so irritable, when you're so angry, when you're so impatient, any noise will disturb you, So therefore, one way of cancelling the vulnerability of people saying harsh words and hurtful speech and very disrespectful, even though people will say them, but you just don't get you don't become so vulnerable to get hurt by it. Why? You have the right attitude, you have the right view, and with this you kindly say, oh, they're having the party, that's the 21st, but let them be happy. Usually we wish people to be well and happy, Now they're happy having the party, you're not happy. That's what's the point of your prayer. In the only few members you say, may all beings have happiness and cause of happiness, and they're having happy, but having a little party to their son turning 21 or whatever, and you're miserable. So where's your prayer? You should say, oh, may they be well and happy, and I rejoice they're having a good time. Hopefully everybody stays same and don't drink too much. Very good. But so you will not be so vulnerable. Why? You practice right speech. Right speech means right understanding. Right speech means right hearing. You have to understand. Right hearing comes when you have right understanding. When you understand they're having a party, it's once a year or once few months, you would not mind. You wouldn't think they are disrespectful to you. You don't think you are sick that you have to go to bed early. It doesn't occur to them. They occur to them on my son's party. So therefore empathize. So put others first, and when the I first obscuration doesn't operate, the other first consideration cancels the problem. How do you practice right speech? Is right attitude, and then you have this. You have right understanding. You have deep listening. You listen. You understand. So people say, "Please listen to me." Yeah. We hear them, but we don't listen to them. If we listen properly, then we don't mind the actual language, but what they're really saying is quite different from what they're actually using language. Most people are so deluded. They don't know how to say it gently, tenderly, kindly, and compassionate. TLC, these three things. Love, kindness, generosity are all in the form of small acts of kindness through your careful choice of language, careful choice of body language, yeah, and of course never use any aggressive and violent, and by that you wouldn't believe how powerful kind of way you can cancel the would-be cause of your suffering. Didn't become cause, but instead become empathy, cause of your empathy. And therefore, why? You put other first and didn't allow the I first obscuration to take you over. Noble Truth of Path puts an end to the true origin of sorrow, so suffering. That's the truth of cessation. Truth of cessation is the result of practicing truth of the path in relation to the noble truth of, in relation to the Eightfold Path of right speech. You have to also see what is the right noble truth of the path. That is practicing tolerance, kindness, TLC, through what you don't say and how you say yourself. That is TLC. Flowers, love hearts, birthday cards, not so important. When you really comes to crux of the matter, if you can practice TLC and use the right kind speech, that's probably much more powerful gift than anything else. And the person who actually practices right speech will be able to forgive others, because he knows it's not a question of who's right and who's wrong, but who's kind enough to make the difference. Kindness makes the difference. Right and wrong doesn't make the difference. It creates the two extreme opposites and conflicts. That's why His Holiness Dalai Lama says, kindness is my religion. Even in the Buddhist literature, there's a purpose of even meditation, karma body meditation, deity yoga, and mantra recitation. All of these is so that we can practice kindness to those who do not know how to practice right speech. And so that we can practice tolerance, so that we can practice tenderness, gentleness, and loving kindness, so that their neuroses are calmed by your non-reaction, because what they do is impermanent, and what they do has no permanent effect on you. particularly when you can practice the right view, because you can cancel it. You can cancel it, You can cancel it. You don't have to respond. You can delete most of the things. You just delete them. Just delete them. It's very good to delete. Delete them with kindness, of course. Don't delete them with vengeance. Okay, delete them with kindness. No, my dears, I will not respond to you. Thank you for sending me this. Delete. Very good. and so delete another. Delete with the ear. Delete with the mind, and you are not offendable. You have good reason that you wear earrings. Now your earring is working, In Buddhism, in the deity yoga, we have to have, all the deities got 6 ornaments, and one of the very important ones is earring and the necklace. Earring and necklace. The earring and necklace is, even when we give the mantra oral transmission in the teachings, the mantra is given as a necklace for you to wear, so that from here onwards, you being able to recite this mantra will give you a good voice, a right speech. That's the necklace they're talking about. That's the necklace they're talking about. You don't worry that your neck is too long or your neck is too thick or whatever. As long as what you say is gentle and kind and tender. So don't worry about your actual neck, But what you say is more important than the necklace that matches the shirt and the earring. What's that for? You're trying to impress. What are you trying to impress, You're looking for trouble. So therefore they say the earring you should put on, even in Tibetan traditional Tibet, men wear really long earrings, These days they don't. I don't know why. But my father used to wear long, like his soul is Saki Trinzen. And they always wear beautiful long earrings. It's the point of that is they are practitioners. So they have dignity to guard their ears. Of course, they are wearing necklace to guard their speech. So all the ornaments the Vajrayana did put like the bracelets is to guard their hands, so that they don't do things. The anklets is so that they are kept away from out of problematic places, so they don't loiter, they don't go to wrong negative places. And they have girdles, a belt, and they have crown. All of these ornaments, out of that, the earring is to guard your ears from gossiping, from bad mouthing and criticism and insult and idle gossiping. Even if people does, you should not become influenced by them. That is the purpose of the earring. And purpose of the necklace is so that you don't add to it, negatively speaking. You just guard your speech so that you do not say anything that will exacerbate the problem, because you have a good understanding, a good hearing, and you have actually just as much well-restrained your mouth. Ear need to be restrained, and so should be the mouth. Maybe you can also restrain the eyes. So that will turn three wise person. No longer subjected to the eye first obscuration. Doesn't suffer from the eye first obscuration because his ears guarded, his mouth is guarded, and his also eyes are guarded. That's the right view, right speech, right attitude. All things covered. And you wouldn't believe what the Eightfold Path is more like a practice of the person who has the right view. Person who doesn't have the understanding of right view, it's very difficult to mind their language. They want to, but they just forget it. Again, they forget. It's just so habituated, so addicted to the old habits. They just don't know how to break. Once the right view sets in their mind, in their ideology, then they will have the intellectual and emotional fitness to procure the right view, and then the right attitude, and therefore a right speech. And another form of right speech is chanting, recitation, reading good books, not just books to pass time. Okay, of course, it helps you to spend time, but read a good book, the good books that has great values, great teachings, great life skills, and great many wisdoms, and that when you read it, then it just informs you and reforms you. So right speech is read good books. That's why in Buddhism we write the Dharma books in gold, in silver. We don't leave the books lying idle on coffee table and put feet up on that. We read the books and put them, wrap up nicely, put them elevated place. When you finish the practice, you put on your head. So you try to practice. These are blessed speech of the Buddha. Blessed speech of Buddha. You respect the blessed speech of Buddha so much, you write them in gold, because they're golden words. They're just golden words. They're evergreen truth. They're evergreen truth. So read scriptures, memorize sutras, recite mantras, spend time reading, listening to them, and engage in meaningful, positive conversation with people you know has been positive to you. People who with whom you spend time have been speaking positive, good things, and they never have vented their negativities, bring gossip. You don't listen to them. You don't just go to them. You just know who to frequent with, who to talk to. That's very important. We become so easily influenced by it. We are a societal person. We are a social person. But if you don't know how to mix with the right kind of person, some people are always like that. They just want to create trouble, as if they don't have their trouble themselves. They talk about someone else's problem, and then you get involved as if you're going to get really benefited. But what did they do is only harm you and mess you up, because that's the kind of people they are like. They have no conscience themselves. They have no right attitude themselves, and therefore they will spread the poison. And therefore, a person who want to practice right speech wanted to have good things. You have good books, good information, good Dharma kind of informations. Where these days there are lots of teachings from His Holiness Dalai Lama all the way to others who's providing these kind of teachings. Listen to the Dharma teachings. Even you're doing something, put them on while playing in the back. You just caught a few times those snippets of those wisdom will capture your imagination. And don't put those loud, kind of useless noises that actually creates only trouble. And don't listen to the news too much, because most of them are just same thing. That's not a news. They were saying that 2 days ago. They're saying the same thing, And they say, and it just can cause you a lot of suffering. You just create your anxiety. So don't tune to those news too many times, because you can't handle it. And the suffering of the world has always been there. It's not a news, and it will always be there as long as the root cause of sufferings are uprooted. And that is not going to happen by listening to them. So that's why it's good to abstain oneself from the wrong kind of interaction with people or deluded whose influence to you and others negative. Don't just listen to them, but instead listen to the people or friends or the sources which has been always beneficial, truthful, inspirational, positive, and learning. So then we are not likely to having to even wear earrings. You don't have to wear mouth guard. These days, remember, everybody's wearing a mask. I like that idea. Everybody has been completely sort of automatically told that they should mind their language because they all put it in the mouth. So when they speak, they have to remove it. So they have to think again whether they should say something or not, because it's such a hassle to remove it, to put it on. So it's good. All the burqas should be on. Everybody should put the mouth guard and the ear guard. So mindfulness of right speech is is such a gift. People practice in form of silence, people practice in terms of recitation, prayers, and recitation, dharma, good, holy, wholesome dharma discussion is good, and reading is good, and reading. People these days, people in the West, they say, "I read the book." They think they know the book. The dharma books are not something you read once and then leave it. No. You read it again and again. There's so many facts there we haven't fathomed and comprehended. So they're not like a novel that's just so you read for the passing of time. Dharma is not Dharma. Reading Dharma books should be treated formally as a study. Say refuge prayer at the beginning, and then read maybe 20 pages. Then close it, and then dedicate the marriage. And what did you get from that? Formalize your study and with other people or yourself, so that the kind of communication between your head and heart is actually nurturing and making you to grow spiritually speaking. So that's why it is good to practice Eightfold Path, particularly with a right speech. When you practice right speech, you wouldn't believe how many of sorrows are automatically lessened, reduced, decreased, even eliminated. Your narrative will change. Your narrative will change when you have practiced right speech. You're no longer speaking with vengeance. You're no longer speaking with resentment. Some people always their own vengeance are just there, always seething there. You can see the person is sitting on the ember, always burning down there. They haven't gotten rid of it. Person who practice right speech haven't got those deep-seated problems, because they are uprooting them. So therefore, go and open your prayer books, go and open your good books, do your recitations, chant the mantras, listen to the mantras, and there are lots of recording of prayers like that, and we're going to put this recording anywhere on YouTube and Facebook. And there are many other prayers, chantings. One can just listen to them. Sometimes you meditate, just have the prayers humming, and you meditate. Very good, In the monastery, we don't get a lot of silence. We always have prayer, chanting, Little monks don't know much, he barely can read. They have to sit there for 7 hours with everybody else chanting. You just have to sit there, just itself can soak your whole hearing consciousness and your mind consciousness, and they have a really healing, positive impact. It is said that pregnant woman, when she's chanting, when she's reciting mantras, then the would-be child get blessed by all the exposure to the chanting and hearing. So we're talking about how we are influenced by exposure to places, So if you're exposed to all the prayers and chantings and hymns and healing, of course it will help. Even your pet animals, they will be quiet. They will love you chanting. They will love to listen quietly. If there's a lot of noise and music and arguments, and the dogs also get disturbed, So they're very, very sensitive. The animals are very, very super sensitive. So it's very good to choose what kind of spend time. How do you want to spend time doing? And so this morning we have definitely spent time talking not only about right speech, any kind of prayers and practice you have. It's very good to review them and chant them, memorize them, sing them in tunes, and so on. That can the melody of devotion, melody of renunciation, melody of realization. These are some of the great songs of Milarepa and Dohas of the great Mahasiddhas. They are all very spiritual realizational songs and writings or readings. So one should know how to expose oneself to the correct, useful, beneficial, positive information. And when we spend more time doing that, then the adverse, negative speech and those society, we just do a lot of kindness to them. We do not become irritable. We don't become impatient with other people who have these. We just learn how to radiate kindness to them, and then do not let them. They cannot stir you up. They cannot poison you, because you have this antibody happening now. Antibody happening. Because I first delusion is not that active. Thank you very much. That's all we have time. And thank you. We want to do the dedication merits, all of you. So thank you for your company. And so this full moon is very auspicious day to do any practice whenever you can. Thank you. Om Badis Mere Meve Hova Ganda Deva Manjanga Om Neza Me Ale Bere Rabe Brande Oshana Badare Zinede Herenda Mayana Dije Whatever Merera Meho Bebe Gazela Toda Mayana Jije Kareja Manju Shrinya Wade Asama Trabadra Dilaiwa Follow it all the Hezambu I shall de the Mare Meda Hexalem Body Chida Traba Veranaya Danza where has been Bomering Freele Vedadi Generation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. See you next time. By the way, those of you who are here already, who are intending to attend next weekend's the teaching with His Holiness, His Holiness teaching is a little bit longer than we initially thought. So therefore, we're going to extend the time schedule from 9 to 6 rather than 9 to 4. Because His Holiness says, first we thought there was 7 sessions, but there were 10 sessions. So in order to fit on that, our session will go from 9 to 6 on next Saturday and Sunday. So if you already registered to do that, so I would like to let you know. But a reminder for that, an email will go out this week to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Welcome. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.